This is our 4th annual Learnapalooza. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the day, how it's going to run, and then we're going to dive right into some cool stuff. A little bit of history about Learnapalooza, just so you know. So Erin and I, where's Erin? She is, wave to everybody. Erin and I had this bright idea about 4 years ago to do a conference differently. And the reason why we wanted to do this is, number one is conferences can be really expensive and you have to travel a lot of times. We wanted to do something here in the Pacific Northwest. So that's number one. Number two, we wanted to kind of disrupt the way we think people want to learn. So we every year we experiment with different things. Last year in the afternoon we did a hackathon, which was really fun. This year we're doing maker labs in the afternoon. From year one we actually did what we call speed learning rounds, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit later. And that's again, those are just ways of just kind of experimenting, figuring out what works for people, having some fun with it. So we value your feedback during the conference, after the conference. We'll send out a survey, but you tell us what's working and how can we do things better for next year. What should we experiment with? Because next year's going to be different again. And that's the beauty of it, is that we do that. The other thing that Darren and I realize is that between the two of us, our networks, and then the people in the room that we know, and is we've got a lot of just people that know lots of stuff. So we've got local people, we've got people that are traveling from across the pond. We've got people in Chloe. Hello, mate. Or, no, that's Australian. So we've got people traveling from Chicago, from, Dan, where are you from again? Ohio. Cleveland. So basketball, that crap. So we've got people that we know that are really good and excellent, so why not bring them here? Why not have them talk to you and share their expertise? So Erin and I said, let's put this thing together. And so 4 years later, we're still doing it. On your tables, a couple things, just kind of logistically. There's some poster board right in the middle, and then there's some stickers. What we want you to do throughout the day is write on there, and not so much what one challenge I have necessarily, but maybe something that's inspired you about the day. It could be a challenge, and if you do have a challenge, put a question mark on it. We like to collect those. Again, that's part of our the artifacts that we collect from today. We take lots of photos. As you can see with the lights, we're live streaming. But we want to make sure that we're collecting lots of things so we can give that feedback to you through our website and through LinkedIn. So please stay active in that. You'll also notice that we don't do a traditional handout and agenda. We give you a one-page so that you know what's going on. We give you a 11 by 17 placemat for you to take notes, and then there's these fantastic cards that are on all the tables from the coloring project. Andrea, where are you at? Right there, right? So she's one of our sponsors. So and she brought in all the coloring markers and stuff like that. Again, this is something that, throughout the day, feel free to grab some markers, color in, because we all know that, you may be listening to us, but hey, doodle and color in on your sheets, because it's fun. It's fun, and you can learn from it. The notebooks we passed out, obviously, are for note-taking. And then the agenda for today. So we've had a little bit of the breakfast networking. So we'll continue to do some of the intros and stuff in a little bit. We're going to have a morning keynote, and then from 10 to noon we're going to have speed learning. And I'll tell you a little bit about that now. Is you actually, and I'll repeat this so you don't have to memorize each person that's going to do the speed learning round. But there's 7 facilitators, and if you're a facilitator, raise your hand. So you notice that the 7 facilitators are all around the room. So we've got every table has a facilitator, and then in that very back room over there will be 2 facilitators as well. And what we do during speed learning is we give you speed learning rounds. We give you 15 minutes with that person or that couple at that table, and they're going to talk to you about and facilitate a conversation with you about whatever it is they're talking about. Okay? By the way, it's in your agenda on the different topics, so I'm not going to go deep yet. We'll talk about those when we get to that time. The interesting thing about that, though, is between now and then, I do want you to look at your agenda, because you'll notice that there are 7 different speed learning topics. You only have a choice for 5. What? Darren, you bastard. So you have to choose wisely, right? So choose wisely. You're gonna have the opportunity to go to one table, then you'll have 2 minutes to get to another table, then you'll have 2 minutes to get to another table. After the 15 minutes, we'll take a break, and then you'll have 2 more rounds. So it is really interesting. It's really fun. You get a lot of good stuff. But again, you have to kind of pick and choose which topics you really want to go to. There is an opportunity to follow up with all of our speakers after Learnapalooza, obviously through LinkedIn and through conversations.
Darren, can we tell them about the happy hour now?
We can, John. So instead of going to the lunch keynote, I'll just go ahead and skip all the way over here to the happy hour. Because that's what John wanted to talk about. So after Learnapalooza is all done, there is geo-teaming is gathering. Where are you gathering at, John? Where are we getting?
It's not the bad bar, it's the good bar.
The good bar. So if you want to continue the networking, geo-teaming is just hosting it. But come and you can have some drinks, have some appetizers, stuff like that. And John, I'm sure, will make me say that again during lunch and at the end of the day. So do remind me, John. Lunch keynote, we've got Jeff Carpenter from Cavio right over here, who's going to talk a little bit more about the disruption and innovation that's happening in our industry. Really fascinating stuff there. In fact, I've talked to Jeff several different times about this, and he's got some really interesting thoughts about it. So really good. Was it? Yeah. Well, I'm trying to. It's okay. Sorry. Yeah. So if the lunch keynote sucks, what can you do? He's already booked though, so can't change about now. Then in the afternoon, we're gonna have maker labs. This is where you actually get a chance to actually do something. Well, not that you're not doing something, already today, but if you're a maker lab facilitator, wave your hand. So we've got a few people: Myra, Jeff, Melissa's over here, PJ, Brittany, John. I'm missing. And then we've got Bruce and Myra, who are also doing what we call a conversation corner. I'll get into that, but it's an opportunity to have a discussion around the future of our industry, but then also getting into some rooms. We actually have 2 rooms upstairs that we reserve for this, where you can actually make some things. So you can actually participate in learning how to make a chat bot, or learn how to do video with Jeff. So again, some really cool things. We're going to finish off the day with a keynote, but it's not really a keynote because she's going to make you do some work. She's Patty Drobolowski is CEO of Creative Genius. She's going to help you invent you again. So it's really, you will be astounded with her. I've known her for a few years, and she's a great speaker as well. Want to recognize some of our sponsors for today. So Cavio Learning is our primary sponsor for today. They're over here. We've got Jeff and Christina. Wave, Jeff and Christina. Yay. So definitely want to talk to them about the learning in this space. I'm not going to go in too deep because Jeff, I know you'll talk a little bit about what Cavio does more, but they do a lot of great work with a lot of big companies. I know they work with Amazon and Microsoft and companies around here. So really, really happy and trying to work alongside them for this partnership. And then we've got lots of other ones which we're really excited. So Cinecraft is a sponsor today. Dan. Hello, Dan, from Ohio, Cleveland, who's going to win the series yet again. Yeah, it's getting a little boring, by the way. LeBron James wins another crown, blah, blah, blah. Geo-teaming, John and his team is here. I don't know if you noticed, there's a laptop, John's around in your face. He's back there waving. We're live streaming today, so we're on YouTube. If you look up Geoteaming on YouTube, we're not only live streaming, so you can now tweet out that we're live streaming, and you can tell all your coworkers to watch us on YouTube Live. John is also going to archive that up there, so if you missed anything today, if you missed any of my jokes and you want to hear them again, all that, you can rewind it back and forth. EP Consulting, that's Erin's company. She does some consulting. Noplicity is my company.
And shout out to AT, I don't know if we lost them.
We did not. Learning Battle Cards, they couldn't be here, but they're one of our sponsors, and they're one of our prizes for today, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. The coloring project, as I said, Andrea's here. She's the one that designed the card that is on your table. She does some fabulous work. We actually have a couple of her coloring books to give away. I've got one of them, by the way, and it helps me. I sit at night and I color in it, and I say, I love coloring outside the line. ATD is here, so ATD, and we've got a couple of representatives from ATD. Where's the ATD peeps? Hello.
Hi.
How are you? Sorry, I'm now across the pond now. I'm starting to do English accents. So we've got ATD set up over here. Certainly a valued partner. We've been partnering with them for the whole time we've been doing Learnapalooza, and they do run some really great programs. So they do under the hood type of programs. They do their monthly programs. They now have an ATD South Sound meeting that they run every month. So definitely talk to the ATD folks. And Vivo Team Development is here as well, and we're giving away, I think, a team, well, I'll figure it out. Some kind of team.
Statistics report.
What's that?
It's a vital statistics report for your team, so you can take a look at how well you're functioning and trade on to improve. Hi, Jim. From Vivo Team.
And I'm Renee.
Hi. Renee. Love my life.
And Darren, I can actually say I've taken this assessment. Well, first they're from Canada, so let's welcome our Canadians.
And you're not the only one.
The second part is this assessment will actually tell you the dollar amount of your lost productivity of your team. Pretty cool.
Wow. Or depressing, but no, I'm just kidding. It's about action, right? So what do you do? What's the action? Sorry. All right. So before we get started, I do want to do one thing. I want your feedback on what you want to get out of today in one word. So take out your smartphones, because I know we all carry them these days. You're going to open up your browser. You can also do this on a laptop. And actually, I think this is, this should say, yeah. Say again? Slido.com. And if that doesn't work, you can do sli.do. That also works. And once you get there, the event code is lap 4. And go ahead and enter in your one thing you want to get out of today.
What's the Wi-Fi here?
It's Impact Hub. If you go to Impact Hub, it should be in your Wi-Fi settings. If you select Impact Hub, it will launch your browser, and it'll ask you to, there's some guest directions to follow for that. All right. So, let me switch. So, here's what you guys have said you want to get out of today. So look at the, so we got some things around around the peripheral, some new technology and stuff. It's interesting. I love this. The inspiration's coming up as the biggest so far. Learning, networking, ideas, insights, disruptions. Disruption's a little small. Someone put more disruption in, please. Don't make that big. I'm just kidding. Inspiration's good though. Don't take that away. Learning, learn new ideas. Okay. Excellent. Good stuff. Well, we're definitely going to talk a lot about. I love this. And what? That's good. Joy. I love that. This is really, again, what the conference is about, is disruption, inspiration, networking, all of those things. So we'll have another one of those at the end of the day to see what you actually learned from the day. But a couple more things, and then we're going to kick it off with our keynote. So the other thing that we want you to do today is because if you've been to past Learnapaloozas, you know that we like to give away prizes. In fact, one of you has already won. Do you know? Do you know who you are yet? How do you know? It's an Amazon gift card in your book. So, what's your name? Anna. Anna's already won today. Isn't everybody jealous of Anna? All right, so everybody's flipping through the book now, right? Is there another Amazon gift card? There's not. All right. We're going to give prizes during a couple of breaks, during lunch, and then at the end of the day. Here's a couple ways you can qualify for more prizes. If you tweet with hashtag LAP4, the first tweet of the day with that hashtag that Aaron and I see is going to get a prize. The 10th tweet of the day with hashtag LAP4, there's another prize. So Rob is already counting, and he's like, number 2, number 3, okay, number 10. Get in that 10th tweet. Picture of action. So action can be anything, and we want you to put it on LinkedIn, again with the hashtag LAP4. Throughout the day, if you want to use hashtag LAP4, and then our Twitter is @LAPSeattle, we definitely want you to do those things. Okay? And there'll be other prizes going on throughout the day, and we'll tell you about those. Fantastic prizes, by the way. One of them's a lunch, I think, with Aaron. Is that what we're giving away? Yeah. Drinks. Okay, drinks. Okay, so a couple of other logistics. I mentioned this earlier, but just in case you didn't hear, the bathrooms are in the back and down the hallway, so down those stairs and in the hallway. There are a couple rooms in back. That middle room, though, I think is still empty. So if you need to take a phone call or you want to just take a rest, you can go and just sit in that back room. It is a day full of action, so we are going to have you get up and move from table to table. So just make sure that you know where your stuff is. We do have extras of most of the things, so if you lose your agenda or something like that, we can get that. We've got tables over here, as I said, ATD, Cavio, and then other representation. This space, we have this whole space for all day. There are elevators, sorry, there's one elevator over here and stairs going upstairs. I'll talk a little bit about that, but our sessions in the afternoon are on the 3rd and 4th floor, so we'll be taking the elevators or the stairs to do that. And then our nearest exit is out front. The way you came in, you'll want to know where that is because we're going to be on fire today. Right? Get it? Fire exit? No? Okay. All right. Well, let's get into the meat of it. So a couple of things. I just want you to read these statements. Yeah, to yourself. You don't have to read them out loud. Oh, you can't read it. Oh, you can't. Some people can't see. I'm sorry. So the first one says, I think there's a world market for maybe 5 computers. This was said in 1943 by Thomas Watson, IBM chairman. Computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. This is in Popular Mechanics, 1949, a very progressive magazine. There's no chance that the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. Steve Ballmer said that in 2007. the reason I put this up here is not to, the funny thing is we laugh at those things now, right? And probably maybe 5-6 years ago, we might have laughed at saying, hey, Alexa, turn on my lights, which I do at home, and then it does something different, or it laughs at me. But the point is that the quality is improving, right? And who would have known that we could have, even 10 or 15 years ago, be able to, go out and say, hey, I'm making a pie, I'm working on my car, I'm doing whatever, and I need to learn how to do that. Where do you go to do that today? YouTube, right? So these are things that we probably wouldn't have gotten into even a few years ago. Streaming video, we're live streaming right now. Those are things and so some of the things we're going to talk about, some of the things that Chris is going to bring up, might seem radical, but so did these things not too long ago, right? So something to think about. Another thing to think about, just to kind of prep you and think is, so Dell did a study, 85% of jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't been invented yet. Let that sink in. You're in the learning profession, right? Talent development. How are you going to help those people grow in the profession? How are you going to address the skills gaps that are happening? Here's an interesting thing I found from the Institute for the Future, actually Stanford, this was at Stanford. So students receive 4 years of college education. It's front-loaded at the beginning of adulthood. So if you can't read this, it's 4 years, 18 to 22, formal learning, usually occurring in classroom, limited access to academic setting later in life. Students need to prove ability by age 18 to be accepted. I mean, to me, when I read those things, it doesn't seem like that's the right way, and yet we're struggling to move past that. So, and believe me, I actually think that universities are doing a great job of transitioning into the online learning space and doing some of those things. But imagine if students or learners received a lifetime of learning opportunities, and it's a total of maybe 6 years over a lifetime, right? So it doesn't have to start at age 18. It probably starts somewhere in there, but then it continues on through middle age and even into retirement. Knowledge has been attained across classrooms and practical settings. So that means that they are not only in a classroom setting. For example, you're not only going to be here at Learnapalooza. We're going to get connected on Slack, right? So any of you who sign up for Slack, Aaron and I have been putting in a few questions in there, putting some pointers. Wouldn't it be great to continue the conversation and exchange ideas? We can do that. We can learn from each other outside of this experience. Seasoned adults return to pivot careers. How many of you pivoted your career in the last 5, 10? All right. See, so you're doing some of that already, right? Wouldn't it be great if it was a little bit easier to do? Because I know, not from personal experience, because I've been in learning development for 25 plus years, but I've talked a lot to people that it's painful to pivot in learning something new. It can be hard. Students began studies at different age ranges. I'm a big fan of the Google micro-credentialing. Anybody heard of that? Yeah, if you haven't, you should go out there and Google it. Or Bing it, sorry Chris, Bing. Go and Bing Google micro-credentialing. You'll probably get the same thing. So those are, again, something to think about. Here's the last thing I'll say, and then we're gonna introduce the keynotes for today. So what does a changing marketing industry have to do with learning? So if you look at Forbes, so this is an article that came out last year in Forbes. These are the things that the marketing industry is really starting to go after, right? So they want to understand the customer journey. What does that customer journey look like when they're buying an item, when they're comparing things on Amazon or doing things like that. More targeted ads with a specific person or purpose. You have anybody see the Minority Report where he's walking through that mall and he's like, hey, whatever his name was, James or whatever, it's like, hey, you should buy this leather jacket, or hey, your size has gone up because you're fat now, No, I don't think it said that. That was probably mine when I was thinking about it. But you know, so those kinds of things, professional live video, we're doing a little bit of that, voice marketing, personalization. So if I look at those things, and I've always said that we should be looking outside of our industry to see how we should evolve. And basically all I did is I take these same things and I put things like true understanding of a learning journey. What's the learner getting out of this? What does it mean from day one to the time that they retire from your organization? My belief is that learning happens before you enter your job on a Monday, and it should go all the way through either retirement or you boomerang back to that particular employer. But it shouldn't stop with onboarding, shouldn't stop with a class. All those things should be part of that employee life cycle. More context within specific purpose. How do we get context for learning in front of them when they're on the job? Doesn't matter where you're at, whether it's in manufacturing, whether you're a coder at Amazon, it doesn't matter where you're at. How do we get context, right? How do we get learning in context? And then professional and user-created video, you know, Jeff Tillett's going to be talking a little bit about video today. By the way, you know, this is the one thing that I probably would cross out professional and just say, create video. Get it out there. Get people to you know, because they like it, they will use it. Personalization around the learning path, and then voice-activated learning. All these things are things that, as I look at other industries, they say, well, how would that apply to us? And how can we take some of the learning that they've done over here and do it over here? One quick story, and then we'll turn it over to Chris and Ludo, is you know, one of the things I've always said is get to know the people in your organization and figure out who are going to be your best partnerships. And oftentimes in learning, we always said, oh, it's IT, because we need their help with an LMS, or we need their help with integration of systems. And that's true. It's becoming a little less true because of the software in the cloud and single sign-on and stuff like that. You still need the security, and you still need that kind of integration. In the past, my biggest partners besides IT was anybody want to guess who my biggest partner was in most organizations I've worked with, who I really cultivated partnership with? Frontline manager is a good one, and probably should have done more of that. Marketing, yeah. So I always went to the marketing people first and said, hey, here's what I need, here's how you can help me, how can I help you? Why do you think I went to marketing? Just like, let's say that again, because they have the money, exactly. And no, it's a true story, right? By the way, I found this to be true in most organizations I've ever worked at. Is they've got money for video, they got money for graphics, they got money for design. All I have to do is pull it in-house. They do it outwardly. I can pull a lot of that stuff in-house and reuse it and build this really great partnership to do that. I've spent lots of time thinking about this, and that's, we'll talk during lunch. If you want to talk to me more, I'm a big proponent of partnering with the best people in the organization, especially if they've got money. I'm going to bring up Chris, Pirie, and Ludo Farage. They're our keynote speakers for today. Come on, guys. So microphones right there, Aaron, you're sitting on them. So I've known Chris and Ludo for a while. Chris and I go way back just through ATD days and stuff like that. I worked at Microsoft for a little while, so got a chance to work with both Chris and Ludo within their teams. So really fabulous people. I'm not going to go too in depth because I want them to share their story. Chris is general manager. I don't think it's called Worldwide Learning anymore, but you'll tell us what it is. It's been there for a long time, I think over 20 years. And then Ludo has a new company. You were at Microsoft, Ludo, for 18 years or so?
Yes.
And then has a new company called New Camp Coding. And so an interesting pivot and change to his career. So with that, I'm going to let Chris and Ludo take the stage.
How's everybody? Good. In a minute, we're going to make some video. Do I look like Madonna here? Okay, you can hear me. Glasses on so I can see you. You guys look great. Okay, so when I told my 19-year-old son that I was headlining keynote speaking at a sold-out Something-a-palooza, he said they've got the wrong guy. And what you don't know is, like, I'll tell you all about my professional career, but what I really love to do is play the drums, right? So I want to make a little video, because Darren just said we should make some video, and I'd love you guys to stand up, right? Because you're not a learning group now, you're not a sort of professional group studying and sharing ideas. You're at a rock concert, okay? You're at a rock concert. And I want you to make as much noise as possible, and I want you to chant, "Play the drums." We're going to try one more time. Let's just try it first. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Play the drums! Awesome, but you can do better than that. We're going to do it 4 times in a row. Okay, so on my count, get the video going. Yes, it's a Microsoft guy with an iPhone. All right? Okay, Microsoft guy with an iPhone. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Play the drums! Again. Play the drums! Play the drums! Play the drums! Play the drums! Okay, we should probably stop before we get to that was a bit of fun. Hello, everybody. My name is Chris Pirie, and I work at Microsoft during the day, and I play the drums at night. But you're spared the drums. Let me get to know you a little bit before I start. We've got 45 minutes, and I'm going to move quick. But before I start, I want to know a little bit about you guys. How many of you stand up if you work in a corporate environment? You work for Amazon? Oh my gosh. Okay, shout out some corporate names for me. What do we got here? Boeing, Nintendo, Amazon, Liberty, Telca, Bill Finance Services. All right, great, that's good. Now stand up if you are an independent contractor. You guys can sit down. There may be crossover. Okay. Why don't we give a big round of applause to the people who make it really happen? Anybody work in the not-for-profit space? Okay, great. Big round of applause for these guys. Really making important things happen. Anybody I forgot? Go ahead. Healthcare. Healthcare, not in a corporate situation, but in a hospital type situation. Great, big round of applause for healthcare. Okay, so there's a lot of corporate dweebs in here, which is kind of good because that's what I am and that's what I'm going to talk about. Darren asked me to be, he said this was like a conference on disruption. And I'm liking what I see already. I love the building. Round of applause for the building. I love the way Darren and team have set up the day to do things a little bit differently, and there's just a couple of boring keynotes that you have to sit through, but there's a lot of coloring books and stuff like that. It's awesome. I like that. And so I'm going to try and be as provocative and thought-provoking as possible. And we're going to definitely spend time with my buddy Ludo, who is one of the most disruptive thinkers that I know. So I'm going to share him with you as well. So the title of my talk is Everything You Know About Workplace Learning is About to Change. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Good thing? Put your hand up. Oh, okay, that's good. Bad thing? That's okay too, because it's going to be a little bit scary. Okay? I'll say bad thing too. Now let's see if I can make this clicker work. Yes, yes I can. Now I'm going to completely change the mood a little bit, and I'm going to make you watch a video. If I can get this multi-screen. So we got the audio.
I'm Satya Nadella. I lost my sight when I was 7, and shortly after that I went to a school for the blind. And that's where I was introduced to talking computers, and that really opened up a whole new world of opportunities. I joined Microsoft 10 years ago as a software engineer. I love making things which improve people's lives. And one of the things I've always dreamt of since I was at university was this idea of something that could tell you at any moment what's going on around you.
I think it's a man jumping in the air doing a trick on a skateboard.
I teamed up with like-minded engineers to make an app which lets you know who and what is around you. It's based on top of the Microsoft Intelligence APIs, which makes it so much easier to make this kind of thing. The app runs on smartphones, but also on the Pivot Head smart glasses. When you're talking to a bigger group, sometimes you can talk and there's no response, and you think, is everyone listening really well, or are they half asleep? And you never know.
I see two faces, 40-year-old man with a beard looking surprised, 20-year-old woman looking happy.
The app can describe the general age and gender of the people around me and what their emotions are, which is incredible. One of the things that's most useful about the app is the ability to read out text.
Hello, good afternoon. Here's your menu.
Great, thank you. I can use the app on my phone to take a picture of the menu, and it's going to guide me on how to take that correct photo.
Move camera to the bottom right and away from the document.
And then it'll recognize the text. Read me the headings.
I see appetizers, salads, paninis, pizzas, pastas.
Years ago, this was science fiction. I never thought it would be something that you could actually do. But artificial intelligence is improving at an ever faster rate. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this. As engineers, we're always standing on the shoulders of giants, building on top of what went before. And in this case, we've taken years of research from Microsoft Research to pull this off.
I think it's a young girl throwing an orange frisbee in the park.
For me, it's about taking that far-off dream and building it one step at a time. I think this is just the beginning.
Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool. I'm going to explain what that has to do with anything we're doing today in a minute. But it is a very cool video, and it's very related to what we're here to talk about today. So this is my provocative statement for all of you who work in corporate learning. If you're paying attention, you're probably feeling like me that it's kind of crunch time. There's another way to phrase this, but I want it to be polite. I think there's a lot of change coming. There's a lot of forces at work on the function of corporate learning. I'm going to explain why I think that is, and then I'm going to talk about 4 things that we can do to kind of rise up and kind of address that situation. So one of the reasons I think we're in trouble is because we have a set of tools and techniques that were designed for this piece of equipment. Put your hands up if you know what this is. This, almost everybody, sometimes that can divide the room. When really the expectations for what we do are more aligned to this piece of equipment. How many people know what this piece of equipment is? Yeah, and the kind of technology that's available today at consumer prices is unbelievable. And it's set the expectations of our learners and our audience super, super high. So what are the disruptive forces at work that make me so gloomy or maybe optimistic about the amount of change that's going on in our industry? Well, in a word, it's the robots, okay? How many of you have heard about the 4th Industrial Revolution? Right, we're about to enter the 4th Industrial Revolution. You don't need to take my word for it, you can just Google it or Bing it. And you'll see everyone from the World Economic Forum on down is paranoid about what's going to happen when the new wave of technology really starts to get deployed around the world. Because this wave of technology, unlike the previous industrial revolutions, won't just automate manual and repetitive tasks. It's going to automate cognitive tasks as well. You saw an example of it there, packaged up in a beautiful way to help people who really need help. Darren talked about Alexa, so on and so forth. These thinking machines are coming at you, and they're going to really change the world around us, and they've got a lot of people very, very worried, but also very, very optimistic. And we've got to decide which of those sides we come down on, and it's probably going to be a little bit of each. So you don't need to take my word for it that things are going to get tough for us. Let's look at some of the data. First of all, here's a study from CEOs, CFOs, and CHRIOs done by the Corporate Conference Board. And basically, the #1 issue for those people is skills and capability. Okay? Wait a second. Skills and capability, isn't that our job? yeah, that's our job. And it's top of mind for them. So that's either great news or it's really, really bad news. If you talk about the World Economic Forum, there's a really great read that will scare the pants off you about how jobs are going to change in the face of this wave of technology. It's already happening. People are being displaced. If you work in retail today, you've got to be kind of worried. You've got to be thinking about plan B, because retail's been automated at an incredible pace by some of the companies in our very city. If you look at the kind of skills that are in demand, there's massive demand. Interestingly enough, I was very surprised for soft skills. 92% of CEOs say they can't get enough people with leadership skills, with collaboration skills, and with the sort of human skills that the robots are not going to be able to do for us, right? So that is a great sign, but it's a lot of work to do to build capability around collaboration, teaming, and leadership in the corporation. We all know in Seattle that we can't get enough engineers, data scientists, cloud distributed computing engineers, statistical analysis and data mining, people who can do numbers, people who can do data are in massive demand. We know that, we see that play out every day in our workplace. But of the 2.5 billion people in the workforce today, almost half of them are already doing knowledge worker type jobs. And these are the kind of jobs that are actually under threat as we automate more and more of these tasks that in the past we couldn't automate thanks to machine learning. And the 1.2 billion people using Microsoft Office today, and use that as a proxy, we can add any other communications technology in that, we'll be short 800 million of them in the next 3 years. 800 million. So if you're looking for work to do, that's quite a lot of work that's got to be done. It'll be 20 to 50 million people by 2030 will need doing technical jobs as well. These are not our numbers, these are numbers from McKinsey studies, and frankly there's 100 studies that are going to tell you the same kind of trend. There's one other reason why I think we need to pay attention to that, and that's my boss. Right? My boss is Satya Nadella. Anybody know who Satya Nadella is? Anybody read his book, Hit Refresh? It's a really interesting book on this topic, and how I would describe his book is it's a manual for how you make learning, an organization's ability to learn, a competitive differentiator in the marketplace. This is how much we care about learning at Microsoft, is we believe that the C in CEO stands for culture. And the culture that we want to build at Microsoft, and we're 4 or 5 years into this journey right now, is a culture where a Microsoftie is not the smartest guy in the room. That might have been our kind of stance in the past. But our aspiration is for the Microsoftie to be the best learner in the room, right? And that's a culture change that we're driving systematically from leadership on down through the whole organization. And this is a good sign, right? This says that we can quantify, if we get this right, the impact that learning and the ability that an organization has to learn in terms of the stock price and the revenue that we can hit as an organization. Very, very interesting. By the way, a great study that came out from Deloitte recently, their talent report, basically says it's the rise of the social enterprise, right? It's no longer good enough for Amazon and Microsoft and Nintendo and Wells Fargo to just make profits and hit their numbers. They now are expected to have a social responsibility, to do good in the world. And we saw that play out in a training context yesterday. Anybody want to hazard a guess who played that out in a very, very public way yesterday? Starbucks. Anyone from Starbucks here? I really want to hear how that went and what your experience was around that. It's incredible, incredible dialogue around the value of learning and training just played out in public. Very interesting. So, what can we do to address these forces at work? What can we do to get on the right side of history here? Because I'm guessing that you're all kind of passionate about learning and helping people get better. Is that right? Are you passionate about helping people learn and get better? Yes, Chris, very passionate, yeah. Okay, so pop quiz. What is the flip side of disruption? Stagnation. Good. Anything else? Are there any other words? I wish I knew that. Word cloud app. Darren, that would be fun. Okay, well I picked this word. I picked the word opportunity. And I'm very, very bullish on this function, right? The job that you've all chosen to do, I think is super important as we go forward. But I think you've got to think differently if we're going to really make an impact on those big forces that are at work, okay? And I think you all know that too, because you're here and you're interested in doing things differently and mixing it up with each other and learning from each other, so on and so forth. So I would say yes, the flip side of disruption is opportunity. And now I'm going to walk you quickly, because I'm going to talk to my friend Ludo, through 4 shifts that I think we have to make as learning professionals or learning departments. And I say this not because I've thought of these ideas, but I've seen these in practice, and I've seen these things drive results, and I've stolen these ideas from people that I get to hang out with. Okay, just for the record. The other thing I would say is there's a whole bunch of other shifts that have to go on as well, and I've got a bonus slide at the end that if you see me afterwards, I'll send you on some of the other things. But the 4 that I thought I would highlight, and I would really, really, really love to get ideas and examples of this from you, because I guarantee you're working on this. The 4 ideas are as follows. One is we've got to move from being instructional designers. How many people class themselves as an instructional designer? Okay, I love you guys, but we've got to start thinking like learning scientists, right? There's too much opinion in our world. We need a fact-based approach to getting people skills and behaviors changed. Second thing I'm going to talk about is learning experiences. And I don't think I really have to talk about this because I think you're in one today. And I think Darren and the team have done an awesome job of thinking differently about what a conference looks like. And it's a good example of the kind of thing that I'm talking about when I'm talking about moving from making classes and courses to giving people learning experiences, right? Very different thing, much more fun when it turns out. The third shift that we have to make is from made-for-purpose learning technology, sorry Sam Herring, to using what the hell you've got around you, right? And I see great examples of that today. I'm going to tell you a little story about, an amazing story actually, about somebody who did that. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about is social learning. This is really, really hard because we've been trained to help people learn in formal context for the most part, and it terrifies us to let go. And we've really got to let go. So we'll talk about some social learning as well. Everybody still with me? Yeah. Do a 7th inning stretch. Just want to stand up, make sure the blood still flows. Good job. Because we're going to launch into this and we're going to go fast. All right, well done everybody. Okay, so what do I mean by becoming a learning scientist? What I mean by this is I am sick to death of people in my business and in my infrastructure telling me their opinions of how people learn. Have you faced that? Everybody's been to school, everybody's been to college, everybody's an expert, right? And so it's very, very difficult to design things when everybody is telling you how to get it done. One response to that is to claim the science high ground, right? And I think there are 4 scientific disciplines that we need to get really good at, right? If we can't do it ourselves, and of course no one's going to be able to do all these things, we've got to get friends. We've got to build teams that have these 4, actually going to be 5 disciplines. So in the old world, instructional designer, trainer, learning manager, whatever your job title is, put it in the middle. And then I say, okay, you need to become a learning scientist. And in order to become a learning scientist, you've got to surround yourself and build knowledge on 4 disciplines. The first is data science. Now, I met a guy this morning, I've forgotten your name, from Nintendo, Rob, day 24. Day 24, is that the right number?
Pretty close.
Close enough, let's call it day 24. I just like the ring of that. Day 24, Rob knows that on day 24, a new hire's performance starts to dip at Nintendo. These guys are on the phone, they're resolving problems. Guess what? The first 23 days are awesome because Rob and his team are making a great, great experience, and they're getting people ramped up. They're excited to be working at Nintendo and talking to customers. What could be cooler? But on day 24, something goes wrong, right? This is a great example of why data science is important to us. I would put to you that 20 out of 30 things that you do are a waste of time. What's criminal is they're not just a waste of your time, they're a waste of the learner's time. And there's a lot of things pulling on the time of your learners. So we need data science at the very least to pinpoint the areas where we and the tools we have at our command can make a difference and not spend a single second engaging in things where we can't make a difference. That would be my kind of first mantra for learning science. The second mantra would be computer science. How many of you know how to write code? Fantastic, fantastic. Should be everybody, but that's a good start. Darren talked a lot about some of the amazing innovation that's coming our way, and I'm so excited. I've always been around tech, and you know, the machines are going to help us. The robots are going to help us. They're already helping us find content. How many people spend most of their time developing content? Okay. There's not a world shortage of content, right? There really isn't. There's fantastic content out there. And I think helping people find pathways through that content, helping people engage with that content in more interesting ways, building programs is super important. And if we use the learning scientists and the algorithms they have around helping you find essential stuff, connecting you to people who have the skills that you need in real time, working with the digital exhaust that we all create every day to understand which meetings people are in that are not productive. There's amazing, amazing technology out there that's really going to change, I think, the shape of what we do in corporate learning. Third science discipline, neuroscience. This is moving really, really quick. Somebody sent me an awesome graphic, which I couldn't put in the deck because I don't know what the ownership rights are, around bias, cerebral bias, right? Starbucks spent 4 hours yesterday helping the people start to understand one particular kind of bias. Have a guess how many biases have been identified by neuroscientists in your average human being? Give me a number. 10, 50,
27.
Yeah, something like 300. 300 biases that are documented. For example, our recall of things depends very, very much on the state of mind we were in when we were given that information in the first place. Now, we kind of know that as learning people. We kind of know that it's important to put people under pressure to help them cram new knowledge into their brains. But now we're getting really, really specific information about how that works. You can put people in an MRI now for $2 a time, and people are starting to map what happens in the brain. And people like NLI Institute are starting to codify that information in ways that we can use as learning professionals. And when you go to a business leader who really just cares about selling more stuff, and but has a really strong opinion on what you should be doing as a learning professional, just flip him this chart of cognitive biases, and it probably will shut him or her up. So we need to get good at this. We need to understand how this is progressing, this discipline is progressing, and we need to take the sort of scientific high ground on neuroscience, because it's a tremendous asset for us. The last piece is social science. There's a guy called Julian Stodd. Did he talk here before, Darren? Julian Stodd from the UK? He's talked at Learnapalooza? Okay. Where's my friend from the UK? Did you ever hear of Julian? Super cool guy. Look him up on the web. There's a very funky company that he runs called Sea Salt Learning. But he's really doing a lot of work around how teams learn, how social groups learn, how the enterprise learns. And guess what? They do most of their learning without your help. Thank you very much. They learn from each other. They learn while they're doing things. They share information from each other. If you survey them like we surveyed them at Microsoft, the number one place they want to go to get the information they need is their peer, right? And as soon as you get involved, and you create a list of learning objectives, and you book a classroom, and you take them out of context of their day-to-day work, you're already putting up barriers for them to learn. You're already kind of slowing down that natural process that human beings do. So we've got to get good at anthropology. We've got to get great at finding ways for people to learn in a social context and give them scaffolding so that they're learning the kind of things we need them to learn, but it doesn't feel like we're making them do it. Okay? So that's my diatribe on learning science. All these things need to be tied together, of course, And I'm a big fan of design thinking. How many people have practiced or learned around design thinking? This is great, great stuff. It's about customer, user, learner empathy. And it's really about spending time to understand what people need, their unspoken needs. And again, it's really about doing less. Less stuff from us, but more impactful stuff, the stuff that people really need. I think if you take the learning science and you glue it together with a discipline of design thinking, what an awesome team you would have to go and solve some of these problems that we talked about. Okay, everyone's still with me? Energy level's still good?
Yeah.
Right, so we're on number 2 shift. Number 2 shift is creating learning experiences. And I'm gonna say nothing more than just soak it up today. Darren's created a learning experience here. It's not gonna stop when you leave this room. You're gonna have networks of friends, you're gonna have contacts, you're gonna have swell your LinkedIn inbox. Good things are gonna happen because Darren's given you a mission. And your mission is to come down to this beautiful building, hang out with some friends, and form a community, right? That's a mission. There's no learning objectives. There's no textbook. He didn't do any learning courses to help explain how it's gonna work. We just kind of put our hands on and we do it. That's a learning experience. It helps if there's an outcome that's defined, like getting the next job or making a customer happy or closing a deal. But that's what really matters, not how many pages are in the e-learning, how much time you have to spend off work to get a new set of skills or a new set of capabilities. The reason this is so important is because we are at war with so many things that are impinging on people's time, right? How many people think that in the learning space, one of the most important things we do is help people create time to learn? Well, I can tell you that's true because we've asked our people, and that's what they like. They like being given time to learn, being given permission and space to think differently. So that's what I mean by learning experiences. You do some thinking, you tell me about examples of when that really, really happens. 3rd shift, from formal learning, people sat in rows at desks, which is still going on today. People listening to a talking head, people clicking through the next learning objective, all those kind of formal structured things that we in our discipline have been told to do for the last 100 years isn't working anymore, and it's not going to work in the future because of all these cognitive demands on people's time. So we need to find ways to tap into the natural ways that people learn, and they're typically social ways. So the story that I want to tell was a story that our leader made a very, very bold statement that said at Microsoft we're changing the culture and the culture will be a learning culture. What he didn't say is you're all going to go to class. In fact, he said the opposite. Every August at Microsoft, we used to go down to Safeco Field, it's still called Safeco Field, and sit in that drafty stadium with a box lunch for 8 hours. Anybody work at Microsoft and do this? And then we, for 8 to 10 hours, we sat and we listened to our wonderful executives tell us what we needed to know, right? Anybody been in that kind of experience? You all have. It's kind of how it worked. That's what we thought was the right thing to do. And we tried really hard. We had fantastic slides. We had a rock band at lunchtime. We did our best to make that work. And Satya made a very, very bold statement to the company, very quietly. He didn't explicitly say this. But he basically said, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to make you sit and listen to leaders anymore. I'm going to give you a whole week, called 1 week, and you're going to learn from each other. Not from executives, because they don't really know much more than you when push comes to shove. You're going to learn from each other. You're going to work on projects that you want to work on. You're going to work in teams that self-form, and you're going to work on whatever you like for a week. And then because I care so much about how this will unlock the intelligence and creativity in our organization, we're going to sit down at the end, we're going to listen to these things, we're going to do a science fair, and we're going to put some of these products into the world. We're going to give you the investment you need to make these into real products. The video I showed you at the start of this presentation was an output from the very first hackathon that we did at Microsoft. I mean, awesome. Did it feel like an output from learning? No, it felt like an output that could change the world for anybody who's visually impaired. Did it feel like something that was high on Microsoft's product agenda to ship? No, it wasn't. It's not part of the productivity suite. But did it feel like the right thing to do? And did it feel like the work product of a culture that loves to learn and loves to share and collaborate? Yeah, it really did. So I think that's the best example that I've come up with of a social learning event, given some scaffolding, some shape, some space in the calendar, 2 monster tents on the Microsoft campus, and a couple of websites to get people connected. That's the scaffolding. And then a mission to go build something that you're passionate about. This is how great learning happens. And guess what? Guess which group didn't do this? The learning group. The learning group did not do this, but the learning group should be doing this kind of thing every single day when we're clear on the problems that we want to help solve. Okay. Good. So last story, use what you have. I can't tell you how many chief learning officers want to engage me in a conversation about what the best LMS is, right? And Sam Herring and learning technology geniuses in the room notwithstanding, you don't need all that stuff. You really don't need all that stuff to build a learning culture and to help people learn and transfer knowledge. This is a story, one of my sort of part-time gigs is with an organization called Humentum. It actually started here in Seattle, they used to be called Lingos. And they do what we do for the not-for-profit organizations. Like it turns out that if you're Habitat for Humanity, or even Red Cross International, all the donor money that you get has to land in the field doing good work. And that makes perfect sense, right? Except, wait a second, aren't the people who do that important, and shouldn't we be investing in their skills like we invest in the skills of people who work at Microsoft or at Amazon? Yes. So let's get smart about how we do that. Humentum was born. We share learning technology. We beg, borrow, and steal assets from across the industry. And we have international NGO members whose people get trained because of what we do. Super, super cool. This story is a story about a group of people who were working on the borders of Syria and Turkey. And I don't know if you were paying attention, but a couple of years ago, 3.5 million people moved out of Syria in a hurry. And a lot of them ended up in these refugee camps on the borders. And a refugee camp is a logistically hard thing to put together. And it's a very, very important thing to do well. And it's very expensive. So a lot of money is going from the humanitarian sector into this geography. And there are great people who are volunteers, a lot of them themselves displaced, who have to make this happen. And of course, there's processes and procedures and approaches that they really need to take in order to make sure this money gets properly deployed. So these people are volunteers, they're hungry for skills. In this case, it's a special kind of project management technique that the sector uses. They're hungry for these skills, they're doing the job every day. There's no Wi-Fi even in these camps yet because things are moving so quickly. So Humentum and their partners set up a training program for 200 of these project managers. And what technology do they use? WhatsApp. How many people know what WhatsApp is? Yeah, good. Sometimes in America people don't know that. They trained 200 people on project management techniques over 3 weeks using WhatsApp. They created a community, they sent documents out. It's the only way they could connect with each other. They had WhatsApp chats at specified times every day, and they got them the core basic things they needed to know in order to be signed off to spend the money that they needed to spend to give these people temporary housing and build camps. Awesome story, right? Screw the learning management system, who needs that? This is much too important, it's much too urgent, use what you have at hand. So I'd love for more stories around using what you have at hand. Okay, now I've worn out my clicker. So let's have a look. It's time to talk to Ludo. Come on up, Ludo. Give him a big round of applause. Thank you. Okay, have a seat. We're going to sit down. It's going to be like Oprah. Okay.
I should have sat with this iPhone.
You got it?
I should have sat on the iPhone actually.
Sat on the iPhone. It's okay. iPhones are okay now. They're approved. So I thought it might be interesting Like, how many of you said you'd sort of changed careers or jobs in the last 5 years? There's quite a lot of hands went up, right? And I think, you know, the topic of my story here is about change. Like, there are all these forces at work on us, and if we just keep doing the things we've done in the past, we're not going to be relevant. That's clear. I mean, it's clear as day to me. And so we've got to change, and change is difficult, and it's painful often. It's kind of necessary. So I thought I'd talk to somebody who I know real well, who's definitely an innovator and has kind of gone through some change. So this is my friend Ludo. Give him a massive round of applause. Now, he's French. I apologize for that. But
You won't be able to hear that.
but I think his story is a really good one, and I think it's kind of inspirational. It's inspirational for me, and hopefully for you as well. So, Ludo, why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. My background is computer science and economics, so far away from learning, but I'll explain how I got there. Started almost 20 years ago now, building websites, commercial websites, the first internet era. And then from building commercial websites, I went into what we used to call at the time knowledge management portals at Microsoft at the time. Then went into portals, knowledge management to social learning, until one day Chris hired me to his group like 7 years ago and really transitioned into formal learning. So the journey for me has been a journey always of wondering how I could stay relevant in what I was doing. I could become relevant as a coder, not being a great one at it, actually. And then, especially over the last few years, and I'm guessing maybe how you all feel if you're in the same age group, wondering how can we stay relevant at 40, 45, right? Right before, in my mind, you will be in a real danger of losing credibility if you wait too long to refresh your skills. Being still successful at Microsoft, I saw the world really changing around me, and I participated into that building MOOCs, but still, the pace at which the world changes, the technology that are now available, AI, and you named most of them, kind of made me fear that I had to do something drastic to really brush up my skills and really become very relevant again for another maybe 10, 15 years. And so I decided, actually 6 months ago almost, to leave Microsoft and build my own company. And of course, the company is a company in the space that I know, but really challenge myself to, instead of having a team, being a team of one, and pretty much trying to really rediscover everything in that business. From first talking to customers, right? Talking to learners. And I should probably say what my company is. It's a coding bootcamp. It's a coding bootcamp.
No, not another coding bootcamp.
Yeah.
That's the last thing the world needs.
That's right. Well, actually, let me actually get into that. Let me get into why a coding bootcamp. So we talked about the skills gap. What 50 million coders needed by 2030. We produce 500,000 a year in the United States. While India, college computer science degrees, while India produces 2.5 and China 4.8 million a year. And then when you look closer, and actually when you look at in Seattle, how do you get actually coding skills? Especially if you're an adult learner, especially if you're like me, for example, who's trying to figure out what you're going to do for the next 10 to 15 years. Well, you most likely sign up to a coding bootcamp. There are 13 coding bootcamps in Seattle that are following a very traditional business model. There's a building, there are instructors, there are curriculum managers, and it costs $15,000 in average. And people have to quit their job to do it. They have to take on a loan. And they have to live in the vicinity of course, like 20-mile radius is best. And then I looked at Tacoma, and I saw 0 coding bootcamp, with a huge demand over there, but people actually can't really afford to commute to Seattle, can't afford to quit their job, and can't afford to pay or find a loan and get another student loan. And so that's why there's another coding bootcamp right now. It's really a coding bootcamp that's about changing and disrupting the industry, education, potentially in general, but starting with coding bootcamps and really serving those areas, Tacoma, Marysville, Spokane, Olympia, Bellingham, where if you are an adult learner, if you're a truck driver, or if you're in an administrative role, data entry, and you want to become a coder, you really don't have an option. Online is there, and most of our students are doing online, but they realize as well that it can only get you that far, like 5%, 7% of them are.
Let's unpack it a bit. That's the thing. Let's unpack it a bit, Ludo. So basically, the way that I would sort of picture it is, you had this fantastic idea about how to build people's skills in a really smart way. And you got very frustrated at Microsoft because we couldn't fit it into our busy schedule. So you said, screw it, I'm going to do it myself, right? That's how I would tell you.
I'm not very frustrated. No,
yeah. But then let's go through some of these disruptive trends, right? So what the forces at work you already talked about.
Yeah.
There's a lack of skills. There's some geographies where it's very hard for people to get access to the right kind of training. And what else? There's a couple of the forces at work.
Yeah, and so there's like 93 coding bootcamps in the US, serving 13 cities.
Yeah, let's find out.
30% of.
Find out what size.
Is it just in my head, or is it in everyone's head?
It's in your.
Yeah. And the MOOC movement also is another force you have to consider, where there's a huge amount of very quality content and curriculums available, built by the best schools, Stanford, Harvard, INSEAD, Wharton. And the challenge is, even though it's available, it's cost effective for students, there's a key element that's missing, is the motivation, right? It's people sign up knowing they're gonna sign up and commit to a 7-month journey most of the time, but very quickly they realize life gets in the way. They don't have the social support they need. They don't have a student nearby. They don't do it with their friends. They don't have an instructor. Things that are kind of critical, we all know. Even though everything is moving, some things are kind of fundamentally are never going to change. We like to learn from one another. Very cool. And so it's really bringing all of that together to hopefully play a part in solving that skills gap.
So we got these disruptive forces, like the lack of skills, the people that are geographically constrained, the lack of the expense that it takes to get skilled, all these things, the big sort of picture. Then go through some of these transitions. So why didn't you, let's go like a training course to experience.
Yeah.
How did that play out in your life?
Yeah, sure. So when you think about the experience that we offer, well, first, I'll tell you that before thinking about building a coding bootcamp, I wanted to build a toolbar add-on on top of Chrome that will overlay your MOOC experience with an in-person experience.
Now, that was a really bad idea.
And I kind of loved it myself because I would get to code again. That was the product I wanted to build. But then, with design thinking and actually talking to potential customers, I realized that people would not have a clue what to do with it, pretty much. And so that wasn't the right solution. So the very first step of building an experience is put on the side what you want to build, right? Which may be very exciting to you, and really test it as much as you can with potential customers. Test it by discussing with them, doing a proof of concept, but actually most of the time you don't even need to build anything. Just a conversation with a number of people.
This is design thinking ethos, like prototype rapidly, try some things out, see what the feedback is.
That's right.
Let me ask you one more shift question.
Yeah.
We've got time for some questions, just. We'll talk about data science. How does data science play in what you do?
So data science, so for us, it's not necessarily in the way that we build our curriculum, it's the way we run our business, or we want to be able to run our business. One of the key elements of NewCamp is we are a low-cost coding bootcamp. And we target a very specific population of individuals that we think are between 25 and 35, earn less than 50,000, but probably more than 30,000 a year, and want a career change. So are actually active professionals having a job right now. And we only charge like $1,300 for a 6.6 period, so pretty much like 90% discount compared to everybody else. But the big question is, where is that audience? We know who they are. How do we reach out to them? How do we know that we're actually going to go in the right city, in the right community that actually needs us? And we actually don't know the answer to that question. We really don't know exactly precisely, should we go to Olympia next? Should we go to Spokane next? Should we go to Bellevue next? Should we go to Bellingham, to Marysville, to Everett? And so that's really where data science is starting to really be a great need, and we haven't fixed that yet or figured that out. It's really, how do we actually know how to reach the audience that will care about what we have to offer them?
Awesome. So I think we're just at time, so I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. So you've got this super cool coding bootcamp. Instead of $30,000, it's $2,000 or less. And it uses MOOCs and social meetup kind of constructs to drive down the cost.
That's right, it's a blend of both.
Complete. What can these fantastic people here do to help?
Well, right now we leave on the, if you want to do of course, if you want to do a coding bootcamp and you don't mind traveling to Tacoma on Saturdays, you're very welcome to do it. We live or die by word of mouth at this point in time. We think we have something to say, we have something to offer that has a social impact, and we need to get the word out. So your help doing that would be fantastic. We're always looking for great instructors. Typically people that are in the industry and would want to help others part-time. It's a really good deal. Actually, we spend most of our money on instructors. We don't spend it on buildings, classrooms, or content. We really spend the money on instructors. So if you know people in the coding space, good instructors who want to give some of their time, that we'll be really looking forward to those. And then something that's kind of funny in a way, but because in our model we don't rent classrooms, we actually look for spaces like this one, maybe smaller. Spaces typically that will be banquet rooms in restaurants or cafes that can host 10 people on a Saturday morning. So if you know any good place in the Washington State area for now,
Anybody working Starbucks?
Anywhere where we can really gather a group of 10 to 12 people on a regular basis, that would be nice, like, you know, some light. You know what the perfect experience for students is. We love to know where those places are as well.
Cool.
And if you have any question, I'd love for you, and if you want to discuss, I'd love to have the conversation with you right after this.
Awesome.
As well.
Ludo, thanks for sharing your story.
Thank you, Chris.
So I'm gonna wrap it up right there because I want you people to go on and get away from boring presentations. I do want to thank you for your attention and your energy and the little video you made at the beginning. It's going to be great for me. And I want you to have a really fantastic time today. And if any of these stories kind of resonate with you, I'm a collector of stories. So tell me what shifts are underway in your world or in your company, how you're responding. We have the opportunity as a kind of discipline to make a fantastic impact in the world, to continue making a fantastic impact in the world. But we've got to think differently. So thanks for your time. Thanks for coming here and thinking different. And thank you, Darren, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. In 7 minutes, we're gonna get back together and we're gonna do our speed learning. So you have a 7-minute break to get some coffee, to freshen up, in the bathroom, do whatever you want to do. And then we'll be back here in 7 minutes.